Good morning, everybody. Welcome to FreeSpace Now. I am your host, John Willis, founder and CEO of FreeSpace Social. And with me today is Kylie Jean Tannehill, producer, consultant, and the happiest person out of Nashville, Tennessee. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. What is up, John?
What do you think of that bumper music?
You know what? I loved that bumper music. I loved the intro. I feel like I'm ready to show up to a great rock show right now.
Well, you're in Nashville, so it's got to be country rock, little
country rock. You know, we can do a little twang.
Little Luke Bryant or little Garth or
a little shake into something.
Little
you know,
Carrie Underwood. Yeah, should be good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm so grateful to have you here on our new show. You know, we just launched this podcast last week, and so we're going to be having a whole bunch of guests coming onto the program. We're going to be, interviewing all sorts of cool people over the next few weeks, and I can't think of anybody cooler than Kylie Jean Tannehill. I mean,
wow. Yeah. What an honor to be bestowed. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you and everything that you guys have going on, and to be one of the first to speak with you on all things between FreeSpace and just what's happening in life. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
My setup is a little bit more ghetto than yours, but we're going to call it vintage.
Hey.
I'm like old school.
Hey, it's all good. We'll give you a few weeks and you'll get it all set up right, and it's going to be fantastic.
Perfect. We don't have a banner. We have a wall, and I don't even have AirPods.
It's a bit ghetto, but it's okay.
It's all good. We're rolling with it.
Oh man, that's funny. So none of our listeners and viewers know this, but Kylie has been with FreeSpace since its inception. In fact, true story here. When we came up with the idea of actually launching a social media platform, I was sitting in her dining room with her parents and a family friend, and we were all trying to brainstorm on what to call the platform, what to name it. And It's hard. I mean, we were coming up with a whole bunch of different names, and
yes.
And but we finally figured it out. In fact, it was actually Elise Parati, who I had on the first episode, who's one of the co-founders of FreeSpace, that came up with the name FreeSpace, and we finally landed on that, and it's been great ever since. But yeah, so Kylie Jean has been there since the inception. Her and her father have been great members of our team, and Kylie's filmed some stuff for us on our other FreeSpace channel, so be sure to check out her video. And she's also been able to interview several cool people. When we had a really great booth at CPAC in Dallas this last July. Why don't you tell us about some of the people that you interviewed and some of the cool experiences that you had there?
Oh, it was awesome. I think one of my favorite was Dr. Ben Carson. He always just brings such a well thought out, elegant way of communicating. So we had Yako, we had Dr. Ben Carson, so many different people who are involved in just standing for truth and our patriotic rights. So that was amazing. I think one of my favorite was Vitor Belfort. That was probably one of my favorite experiences, being able to go to that fight that he was doing with Holyfield. And it's a completely different, I'm used to do sideline reporting with the Arena Football League, and I also did stuff with college football, but the MMA and boxing is like its own world. It's a completely different culture. And so it was just so cool to deep dive and to be in that, and to talk to one of the best in the entire world and hear what he had to say about, all things just in life and the wisdom he brought to the table. And it was just not only impactful, but it was really fun. And so I think that's one of my favorite things about the very heart and the foundation of FreeSpace, is that not only is it something that has a immovable, firm foundation built upon values, but it's fun and it brings life to the table. And so I've enjoyed every experience that I've had with FreeSpace.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Vitor has been a friend of mine for over 2 years now. Jaco Boyens introduced him to me. In fact, a previous business life with the marketing agency that I owned, we were filming some stuff with him and Yaku in Fort Lauderdale at Vitor's gym, and that's how our relationship started. And so when we found out that he was fighting Evander Holyfield, we were one of the first to sponsor that fight because we love Vitor and his family. In fact, I saw an article today that his son, Davi, is the #1 ranked freshman quarterback in the nation. And
yeah, I've been watching it unfold on Instagram, which I love football, college football. It's like my dad and I's love language. And so I've had so much fun feeling like once you've met somebody, whether you know them that well or not, you still feel that personal connection. So I've been like amped watching the process that they've put on Instagram about it. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. And Vitor is such a deep thinker. I mean, everyone just kind of assumes that if you're a fighter, that you're probably going to be like Rocky Balboa, where you're just like, hey, yo, and hey, Adrian, that's a horrible impersonation.
I mean, Rocky had a heart.
He did have a heart, but he wasn't the smartest, as he would say. But everyone kind of assumes that fighters are all idiots. Vitor is probably one of the deepest thinkers I've ever met. I mean, he is
extremely intelligent,
just brilliant man, brilliant businessman too. I mean, the way he understands branding and all sorts of stuff. I mean, the guy's brilliant. I love him. But yeah, so we had Kylie interview Ben Carson, and I think you did Lance Wallnau too, didn't you, at CPAC?
Lance Wallnau. There was so many people. I think we just had them coming in left and right, and it made it for really fun conversations. Random ones, like we had a chief from Choctaw Nation.
Yeah, it
was just we had a full scale of just an array of fun people that we got. Some meet for the first time, some old friends. Carrie Lake, like just some really cool people. So it was a good experience. I think even Bruce Jenner made an appearance. So there was a lot of just fun things going around.
Yeah, it's it's been fun. I mean, ever since we started FreeSpace, like I said, Kylie Jean and her family have been there every step of the way, and I'm really excited to see where things are going for this year. We do have a new platform that we're going to be launching in a couple months. We're launching a FreeSpace 2.0 version that's going to have everything that you love about social media, all the features that you love, like the TikTok style videos, stories, a bunch of other cool stuff, monetization.
And it's not owned by China.
Yes, it's not owned by China. It's not funded by China.
Number one. Yep.
And so we're going to have all these things. It's going to have everything that you love and nothing that you hate. So we're really excited about this new platform that is coming out in April, May timeframe, probably May, because this is tech and nothing ever is delivered on time. But we also have some really cool partnerships that we're going to be announcing here shortly, especially with FreeSpace getting into the health space world, which is going to be awesome. More news to come out about that as time permits. But so, we've got a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world, Miss Kylie Jean. And, as we're seeing everything unfold in the world with regards to all the mandates, COVID, the government shutdowns, government control, and then we're starting to see people fight back. You look what's going on in Canada right now with the truckers overtaking Ottawa. GoFundMe did something fairly interesting this weekend. They decided to, in my opinion, steal all the $10 million plus that were donated to that effort. They literally took all that money and didn't refund it to those who donated it. So
that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. That just blows my mind.
Last time I checked, that's called theft, and you go to jail 100%. For stuff like that. But yeah, they.
I would love to see their fine print.
Oh yeah, it's like, well, if it's not woke enough for us, then we're just going to take the money. So,
government propaganda.
Well, what's weird is that they're calling it an occupation. And there's such a double standard with GoFundMe. It's beyond me. And I think there's definitely a need for alternative crowdfunding type of sites out there, because GoFundMe is so daggum political now, where if you don't fit their narrative, or if there's any type of heat whatsoever, they immediately shut it down. And it's just unfortunate. But, we're starting to see, I guess there's a new trucker convoy here in the States that's heading to D.C. That's getting ramped up here, and I'm sure that they're going to be looking for other alternatives with regards to crowdfunding sources to fund those efforts, because this isn't some sort of revolution or violent uprising that we've seen in the past, where we've seen literally seen our cities burned and businesses burned and people killed. That's not that at all. I mean, what we're seeing in Ottawa, as well as in other places around the world, including, like, I just saw this weekend in Finland, they were also doing a very similar protest. People are just sick and tired of being controlled. They're sick and tired of the government telling them what to do and what they can or can't do, what type of money they can or can't make because of COVID, and using COVID as the excuse to keep everybody in check. When the quote-unquote science that we're supposed to be following has been wrong almost every step of the way. And so people are just fed up with it now, and they want things to go back to normal. So,
absolutely. They want to be heard. And, people are so quick to forget. People are quick to forget what actual violence is. It wasn't even that long ago that we had the BLM riots, and cities are being burnt down. People are being physically hurt and destroyed. People just want their voices to be shown to the government and represent truly we the people, which is what government is supposed to represent.
I mean, it's not like these truckers are building a chop zone in Ottawa, or
oh my gosh.
Or they're not, setting all the surrounding buildings on fire like they did in Portland, and having the mayor of Portland completely support the destruction of his own city. You're not seeing that in Ottawa.
No.
I mean, you're seeing cops in Ottawa literally commandeer their supplies.
Yeah.
Taking their supplies, their fuel, all that stuff, and trying to force them out. I mean, it's just crazy town. I mean, the past 2 years have just been nuts. And in my opinion, it's been nothing more than just a massive, massive power grab by the elite. I mean, what they want to do is just keep us all in check. And they used a virus with a 99.8% recovery rate as the vehicle to usurp unsurmountable amounts of power. So,
absolutely. Well, and it's been years of intentionality down to what's taught and indoctrinated in our school systems, to watering us down as an intelligent society, to completely removing what the true masculine and feminine represent. So what they've done is they've created a nation full of people that have a massive identity crisis. And when you have an identity crisis, you don't actually stand for the truth of who you know you are to be. So now we have all these people who don't have a lick of discernment in them. And so it's confusion. And we have a media that is just an extended arm of the left political party and a propaganda machine. And so people are okay with being spoon-fed a false narrative because they feel more comfortable. And there's this crazy logic of absolutely zero responsibility for yourself because we have to take care of our neighbor, which is absolutely crazy. I'm not actually responsible for somebody else. I'm responsible for myself. So it's created this collide of circumstances that have never been brought together at one time before. So you're actually seeing things that have been in play for a really, really long time. It's just now we have the environment for all of that to be surfaced. And it's interesting. I think this has been a strategic play for a really long time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's Saul Alinsky type tactics, that they started back in the 60s, and or even back in the 30s. With Goebbels in Nazi Germany, with the propaganda machine and information suppression and control. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why we founded FreeSpace, is because we didn't want to limit information or be the information police.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see, talks out of Washington and from the left saying, hey, what are these social media platforms doing to control more of this misinformation? That's a very, very strategic word that they chose to use, this misinformation. Well, who determines if it's misinformation or not? I mean, even Facebook announced that their fact checkers, like Snopes and some of these other third-party fact checkers that they use, are basing their fact checking on their own opinions, and so they're not really fact checking. And so, it's a very dangerous game that big tech is trying to play right now. And I don't really want to talk about much big tech today, but I mean, they really do have interwoven themselves into our daily lives, where it's going to take a while to untangle all the mess that they literally have created. And so, the first step of untangling that mess is you have to get away from them. You have to, unplug in some way, shape, or form, which is very hard. I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm still on Instagram. I'm still on Facebook because that's where most of my connections are. And I'm working on getting their butts over to FreeSpace right now because at least I know at FreeSpace they're safe, because I know that we're not doing anything that's going to put them in a precarious situation where their data is being tracked or, we're punishing them because of their opinions. Why do I know that? Because I'm the big chief. I'm the one that's telling my staff, hey, we're not doing this stuff, guys. Someone has to take a stand. And unfortunately, we've seen it with another conservative platform that is doing the same exact tactics that Facebook and Twitter are doing. If you speak out against that platform, they're kicking you off. Or you speak out against their Chinese funding or how much money that they're paying these influencers with that Chinese money, you're immediately banned within a couple hours. And so, we just don't want to play that game. I mean, there's so many better things to life than to deal with opinion suppression or ideological suppression. I'm just not into that business. I think it's a horrible business model. Go woke, go broke is not in my purview whatsoever. I mean, I want to champion people's individuality and give them a voice. And if they get out of line, if they're saying stuff that is literally illegal, like I'm going to go kill so and so, hey, guess what? That's when we're going to step in and actually do something about it rather than just ignore it like some other platforms did, which is why they're gone now. But so one of
my favorite things that you've ever said is there's a huge difference between hate speech and hated speech. And it's super important to have conversations and the problem is, like, one, you're not allowed to have conversations, and then two, people are unwilling to just let those be facilitated. And so I think that's you told me that years and years ago when we first met. You said, well, there's a difference between hate speech and hated speech. And it always stuck with me. It's like, that's true. It's why these conversations are really important to be made. It's why, like, it's important not to tear down historical monuments. It's why, like, we have to be able to have a place that's trusted to let people engage with one another in these thought processes. Because otherwise we're in huge danger as a society. We're in huge danger as a culture. And we're tiptoeing around already on the words that we're speaking, and the tables are getting flipped in a very unjust two-tier justice system, basically. So I think it is so important. You have to evaluate, like, is this hate speech? Is this hated? Do I just disagree with it? Does it rub me wrong? Like, it's more of that. Yeah.
I think it's a very selfish and egotistical mindset to be offended by every little thing. And I think cancel culture, at least the cancel culture that we're seeing right now, has nothing to do with the actual offense. It has everything to do with the control of that individual that caused the offense. Absolutely. And we're seeing it with Joe Rogan right now. I mean, all Joe Rogan did was he interviewed two different doctors. One of them is one of the most published doctors in the nation. And the other one was the creator of the mRNA vaccine. And because they spoke out against the mainstream narrative of vaccines and vaccine mandates, and you shouldn't be vaccinating your kids because these things are just not tested enough yet. We got to be doing this, testing these for at least 5 years before we even make that mandate for kids to get it. They're making some pretty bold statements, but because Joe had them on a show, now they're out to destroy him. And now they're digging up his past with past comments that he made, where he used racial slurs, and he's apologized for it. And, but to a certain segment of society, apology is not enough. They want total destruction of every single aspect of that person's life because of mistakes that they made. I mean, we saw it with Roseanne Barr when she made comments about, what was her name? Valerie Jarrett. We saw it with, some other very well-known celebrities, just because they spoke out. What's that girl's name on Mandalorian? Gina. I haven't seen that, but I can picture it. I can't remember. Gina Carlo. No, it's not. I know I'm butchering her name, but
I know, because she was pro-Israel.
She had conservative Christian beliefs, and Disney fired her. And so this whole cancel culture is out of control, and it's something that's not new. I mean, cancel culture has always been around with totalitarian mindset type of societies. We saw it with Nazi Germany. We saw it with communist Russia, communist China. Anytime that anyone that speaks out, they're immediately discredited, silenced, or most likely killed. Yeah, we haven't gotten to that point yet here in this country, but we're not far off. I mean, we're really not that far off. I mean, history has definitely repeated itself. And what's interesting to me is that people always say, as soon as you bring up Nazis, you're immediately discredited. It's like, well, why is that? Because if you look at what the Nazis did, they sided with big businesses, with big corporations in their country. They controlled all the media. They controlled all the propaganda. They controlled all the education system. And they actually had the kids rat out their parents if their parents supported an alternative form of government. If they didn't support the Nazi Party, the kids would turn them in, the parents were arrested, and the parents were usually shot and killed. And so, we are definitely down that same path. We're kind of like a hybrid of, communism and fascism. If you really think about it, fascism is the right wing of socialism. Communism is the left wing of socialism. So socialism, you have your left wing and your right wing. And so fascism is, the Nazi Party was the German National Socialist Party, German Worker National Socialist Party. And so they, the Nazis identified themselves as nationalists/socialists. And the communists, you have communist China, communist Russia, Cuba, Venezuela. We know that the left-wing side of things, where the government controls literally everything, fascism at least has there is a separation between the government and the corporations, but they're still aligned. It's just that the government doesn't fully control those corporations like they do in communism. So, so we're seeing that happening right now, like almost like a hybrid of those two forms of government trying to be forced here in the United States, as well as in Canada, Australia, and other parts of Europe, where those forms of government are trying to be shoved down the throats under the guise of vaccine mandates and that type of thing. So it's scary. It's really scary. And one of the reasons why we have FreeSpace out there is we still want to give people a voice to speak out about this, to put out real information and give people the opportunity to discern for themselves if the information is true or not. I mean, I'm not going to police it. I'm not going to have my team fact check, because that's not our job. Our job as a platform is to provide the place for people to have that discussion, to have that information put out there, and then it's up to the user to determine whether it's true or not. So, yeah, I mean, just crazy stuff going on right now.
I know. I have like a bajillion different thoughts that I could table, but it is interesting because there's so much at play that, I mean, we have I call you Big Brother John, right? We have like life conversations outside of a filmed podcast thing where it's like, this is so obvious. Like, how could people not see like this and is in our face? But I think to the average person, it's interesting because big tech chooses what voices they want to be heard and absolutely shuts down the ones that go against the narrative. I would encourage everybody and anyone to follow the money trail. I once had a source that was in the Pentagon who was a propaganda specialist, and they said I had this conversation before the pandemic ever happened, and they said the best thing you could ever do is follow the money trail. Yep. Propaganda is so riddled in American media, and it has been for generations. And so right now in this society where people have experienced the worst that we've ever experienced in our time, I think it's provided ample opportunity to see the backbone that is in people. You can see like, who's willing to actually like dive for information, who's willing to just soak up the things that they're being told. It is almost like the greatest social experiment ever. I truly believe that truth has to stand firm, and truth will expose all things. How that ends up playing out, I don't know. But I believe in the American people. I believe in the opportunity that I don't think our country's over. I think there's really strong people that are rising up right now that in the midst of every greater outside force trying to shut down the voices of truth, I don't think that will happen. I think what can be shaken will be shaken. But I think in the end, we're going to get some really amazing things that are exposed in every circle. And we're going to find out the real grit that is in the American people. And exactly what you said about free space, like those conversations, that information, it has to be shared. It has to have places where that can be platformed. And exactly what you said with Joe Rogan, exactly what you said with all these other people that have had existing platforms that are waking up to the system of control. They don't want their lives controlled. They don't want that for their future generations. And so when they speak out, there's a power play that happens to try to reel them back in. So like Joe Rogan, he's been speaking out. He's been bringing truth. He's been providing people an opportunity to think for themselves, which is what big government doesn't want us to do. They don't want us to think for themselves. Every society you just mentioned, they didn't want their people to think for themselves. And so Joe Rogan's been a forerunner and being like, hey, I think that there's some other thought process. There's some truth, that information that hasn't been provided to you. Let me provide that platform for this discussion to happen. So then what do? They bring up things from the past, they take it out of context, and then they try to cancel them. So to most people I know in my circle of friends, to you, to all these things, we go, this is a no-brainer. We can see what's happening. But there's a lot of people out there who they can't. Yeah. Which blows my mind.
Yeah. It's just such a joke. I mean, this whole cancel culture world we live in now, it's just, life isn't as fun as it used to be. I mean, you remember like watching the award shows back in the day, and they were funny, you know, I mean, you're too young, but to remember Billy Crystal when he used to host the Oscars, and it was hilarious back in the 90s. And then, you know, as time progressed, even to the last 5-6 years, where everything just became so daggum sensitive, where, you know, there wasn't enough minorities that were nominated, or the hosts, you know, weren't allowed to make fun of anybody. Like, you remember Ricky Gervais, the last time he hosted the Golden Globes. It was probably one of the funniest opening bits that I have ever seen on an award show, because he was brutal. I mean, he was calling out these celebrities left and right, saying that Jeffrey Epstein was their friend. And, you know, every time I see it pop up on Facebook, I watch it again, because he is just so good at it.
Oh, me too. Over and over.
It is so funny.
He's so good, and it's just the truth.
And they are so sensitive. Now they don't even have a host. Now they're like, heck, they didn't even have a show this year. They didn't even air it. You know, they used honestly COVID as an excuse, but I don't know. It's so stupid.
I feel like people are just over celebrity. Maybe it's just me, but I'm like, I really don't even care. Like, I'm so tired of this, like, people who live above the law and who just have built these platforms of pride. Like, I work in entertainment industry. My background has been entertainment industry, and it doesn't matter what realm. It is so insane to see you have these many people groups, even if they're under a guise of like a greater message or greater picture, and they've just built these little towers of pride. And I know from like the big biblical truth, pride comes before the fall. And we are seeing the ultimate display of pride right now in every realm of our nation. And it's just a fact. Pride will come before the fall. Look at every great empire in history. Look at the Romans. Look at all of these guys. Massive pride came before it just fell. It was destroyed. So history doesn't lie, which is why they're trying to erase it. And we can like look back at all these different situations and project an idea of what things could look like forward. But there's always the underground heroes. There's always the people like what you're doing at FreeSpace who stood for truth, who gathered together, and who had grit enough to stand against the mass narrative. And it had a marking moment in history. And I think we're going to see a lot of those.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. Last thing I want to talk to you about.
Dating. Just kidding. You
actually, yeah. I was trying to figure out the right way to kind of weave into this. But I want to talk about the demasculization of men and the masculization of women in this day and age, and how that affects relationships, how that affects society as a whole. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, so many thoughts on that. That can be an entire podcast episode. Okay, so I am the only girl. Yeah, round one. Here we go. Get ready. I'm the only girl in my family. I have 3 amazing brothers. I'm really close with my dad. I feel like I've had a really healthy model. Obviously, nobody's perfect, but I've had a really good model of masculinity and healthy femininity. I love my parents, really close with my family. And I can see just from society right now, my generation, this is a common conversation of one, I feel like in the most undramatic way, singleness is a weird epidemic of my generation. It's more of a hookup culture. People don't actually know how to interact in a healthy way. Guys and girls, the way that dating apps have like provided options, the way that it's completely wrecked emotional intelligence blows my mind. But I feel like, once again, everything is purposed, everything is strategic when it comes to narrative, to what's taught in schools, when it comes to gender roles. These kids in kindergarten are being taught, they're basically being shown pornography in classes. Yeah. They're being taught that you don't know your gender. They're being thrown confusion, which is all purposeful. Again, it goes back to identity. When you don't know who you are, then you're going to start spinning out in all ways. So this has leaked in to the idea of the feminist movement and demasculizing men. Okay, well, in every culture, like, you need men to be men. And what does that look like? It's a strong internal leader who's leading his own life. There's a lot of different ways we can wrap into that. But you have, in general, I just had this conversation last night with my dad. My dad, somehow we got on some dating conversation. I was like, well, like, the crazy thing is, I feel like most of the time in society right now, a lot of women I know, like, they're the ones who are the drivers in their relationship. They're the ones wearing the pants in their family. And then you have, I call them beta boys. You have these men who don't have a backbone and just are kind of driven around by these women. And it's tilted the balances of how we've naturally wired to operate. And then you get, did you see, this was recently sent to me. It was like a promotion for like joining the Russian military. Yes. And then a promotion for joining the U.S. military. I honestly was absolutely disgusted. Like, that's the only word I could use.
So for those of you who don't know what she's talking about, there was a compare and contrast of two different recruiting videos, one from Russia and one from the United States military. And the Russian military, I mean, it was like, it's like you're watching like old school Russia. We will destroy America. You know, we will destroy them.
Yeah.
But like, they were tough. I mean, they're blowing stuff up. They're like strong men's men. You know, it's like Putin, riding on the back of a bear with his shirt off type of tough, you know. And and then the American version was a cartoon.
I can't even.
It was a cartoon, and nothing against, the LGBT movement or anything like that, but from a power, like from a position of strength, it basically was saying, yeah, go ahead and bomb us, put us out of our misery, because it was talking about, I joined the military, my two moms, blah blah blah, and
it was a social justice cartoon that was trying to justify that somebody has sacrificed all these areas. It was propaganda at its finest. It was weak. It was disgusting. I was blown away. And then it made me be like, wow, watching the two of these, who the heck, America looks so weak.
Yeah.
I was blown away.
I think
it was a perfect example of what we've become as a male-female.
Yeah. I think it really started, the military, in my opinion, really was hurt starting in 2008 when they changed their rules of engagement. You talk to any guy, I've got a few friends that are Navy SEALs, a few friends that are Rangers and Delta guys, and when they changed their rules of engagement on when they were actually allowed to fire back at the Taliban or ISIS or whomever they were fighting, there was a checklist of certain things that had to be met before they could shoot back, or else they'd be court-martialed, or the media would string them up as killers or murderers. And I mean, even Marcus Luttrell, when you read his story, the lone survivor, when he was when he and his guys were going up the face of a mountain, and all of a sudden they came across these sheep herders or goat herders, and they were in cover, and they knew that if they broke cover, they either had to kill these sheep herders because these sheep herders would go up the hill to the Taliban village, warn them that the SEALs were here, and then the Taliban, 200 plus of them would come down and kill them. They either had to let them go or kill them, but they knew if they killed them and threw their bodies down the mountain, well, then the Taliban would show that video on Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera would throw it on all the major news networks like CNN, MSNBC, and then the Navy SEALs would be considered murder. So it was a lose-lose situation for them. Either way, they were going to die.
Yeah.
And so Marcus Luttrell even said in that book that he made the fateful decision to let them go, and within the hour, the Taliban was on their position and was shooting at them. But it really kind of speaks volumes of where we are as a society today, where you can't defend yourself anymore. And I think when you look at that video, or the videos of Russia and the U.S. recruiting videos, it speaks volumes of just how dangerous of a position we are in this country right now, mainly because social justice and wokeism has taken over the military instead of like, hey, we've got some countries out there that literally want to annihilate every single American, that want to kill me, kill my kids, my wife. I mean, it's very, very dangerous. And instead of, facing them and just saying, hey, you pull this again, I say what you will about President Trump. I mean, I don't want to get too political here. But when Kim Jong-un was shooting off his missiles, what did Trump say? You do it again, and we will wipe you off the face of the earth. There will not be a single North Korean left. We will annihilate the country. And then a month later, he's meeting with Kim Jong-un. Now, unfortunately, that didn't have any long-lasting effects, especially now that Trump's no longer in office and can't hold Kim Jong-un in check. But that was a huge power statement. And then the fact that he walked across the border into North Korea by himself, dude, that was like one of the strongest moves I've ever seen.
That is what a leader, that is what a commander-in-chief should be doing. We should not even be in the Olympics right now. That alone blows my mind. Blows my freaking mind. We should not even be there. For Nancy Pelosi, what did she say? This is a summary, not a direct quote, but she just basically said, she even said like she's in fear.
Yeah, she doesn't want the athletes to upset the CCP. And I'm like, what? We should literally not even. We are the land of the free. I want to upset the CCP, But
I want to say, come and get it, big boys. Like, give me a break.
Yeah. Well,
that's how I feel about it.
I think if you look what's really going on though with this country, I mean, men are not allowed to be men.
Women are taught that they need. This is so sad. Men are not allowed to be men. Their legs are completely cut from under them. I honestly feel for the men of society, and I have amazing. Not only like men in my family, I have amazing guy friends, and we have these conversations. Yeah. Women they're taught that they need to be equal with men, that they need to be as strong as men. One, physically, biologically, we just know that's just not the case. Two, we are emotionally wired completely different. And I have something amazing to bring to the table, and men have something amazing to bring to the table, and it's completely different and it's complementary. Yeah. That's why it's supposed to be one man, one woman, complementary, building these lives together. And we're not even given the opportunity because the nucleus of the American family has been strategically ripped apart. And so it creates this society of confusion. There's very few guys I know that even open doors for women anymore. And there's very few women I know who let them. Yeah. And that's where it's like these simple little things have become so tilted, where it's like, the most honoring, when I'm out in public and I'm going to walk in somewhere and a guy opens my door, I feel really honored. And I also feel like I'm honoring him by letting him do that gesture. It's those small little things where like a big, strong, independent woman can do it herself. Okay, there's a lot I can actually do by myself, but I don't want to. I'd rather build with somebody and compliment
I remember
somebody.
It's probably 10 years ago, there was a general who was testifying in front of Congress, or in front of the Senate, and he kept referring to Senator Barbara Boxer as ma'am. He kept saying, yeah, that's correct, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And she was offended by that. She goes, please stop calling me ma'am. Call me senator. And he goes, well, this God. Is, I can't remember if he said this or not, but he was like, ma'am is a sign of respect. And she was offended by that. And I remember there was an author named Vince Flynn, who wrote a book that actually kind of tied in that particular incident into one of his books.
Yeah.
And then instead of it being a general, it was his main character, a guy named Mitch Rapp, who's kind of like the Jack Bauer, Jason Bourne type of character. And so like when the senator in the book says, "Call me senator," he goes, "No." he goes, "I'm not going to call you. I'm calling you ma'am, because that's what you are, and this is a sign of respect." And he goes, "Frankly, I don't respect you as a senator to call you senator." But it kind of goes to the effect where if you look at what's going on around the world, men are still allowed to be men in countries like Russia and China and all that, but they're allowed to be strong. But here, look at how men are portrayed on television. Look at the TV show Modern Family, who you and I have a common friend whose daughter was on that show. But look at how the husbands are portrayed as stupid, weak and stupid.
They're dumb, they're weak, and it's an intentional play. It's to desensitize.
Do you know why the show Yellowstone is doing so well? Because the men are men. Because the men are men. Yeah, you look at
men want that, and women. Yeah,
you look at Rip. Who's the main ranch hand on there? Every guy wants to be Rip because he is tough as nails, and he doesn't put up with anything. Kevin Costner's character is tough. Even if you watch 1883, Tim McGraw, Sam Elliott's character, they are men. And women respond to that because in the end, women don't want to be men. Women don't want to. They don't want to have the same. Oh, dear God, no. They don't want to have the same responsibilities that men have, and men don't want the same responsibilities that women have. We were given specific roles, and that each role is unique. It's not negative in any way. I'm not talking about. No. I'm not talking about gender pay gaps or any of that stuff. I am talking specifically the role of a father, the role of a mother, the role of a husband, the role of a wife. The role of a provider, the role of a protector, the role of a loving support comforter. There's these very, very important roles that God has blessed us both with. And I think society is trying to blend that or to completely eliminate it. And it's sad and it's scary, but it's kind of tying back into the whole big tech social media thing. That's where we're seeing it inflamed. I mean, we're seeing the gas poured on the fire of all the confusion, the gender confusion that's being taught to kids nowadays, all the very hardcore pornographic type stuff that's being taught through comprehensive sex ed, that Planned Parenthood funded and put together. Basically, all that is just creating more future customers for Planned Parenthood. But that's a whole nother topic. Future customers, it's an assault on children's innocence. It messes with their psyche. It completely formulates. Well, in a way, it actually. In a way, it prepares them to be groomed by pedophiles because when you're introduced, I mean, 100%. I've got 4 young kids, and when you're introduced to something that graphic, that young, it desensitizes you. And it completely changes who you are, the trajectory. Oh, yeah. And if you look at where we're going now, what society is getting ready to normalize now, you're going to hear it right now. Minor attracted persons is the next wave of normalization for the left. Where California's already trying to do it. Where pedophilia is going to be normalized. And some of you may think that that's never going to happen, but I'm telling you, it's already started. Which it's convenient for big industries like Planned Parenthood because they'll be getting a lot more people through their doors through that way, and it is complete abuse. Yeah, it's pure unsaturated evil, in my opinion. And at some point, we as a society have to just call evil for what it is. I mean, I think we've become so accepting of other lifestyles that even the worst that society could possibly offer is now being accepted as normal. Now, kind of going back to history, you have to remember that the Nazis just didn't start killing the Jews right off the bat. The Nazi Party had to condition the people to be okay with it. Mm-hmm. They literally had to work their way up 10 plus years to get them prepared mentally for them to be totally cool with annihilating a complete race of people. And sorry, Whoopi, it was about race. And so like it just didn't start all at once. It just wasn't, hey, you know what? Hey, we're the new Nazi party, and what do we want to do? We want to make Germany great, and we want to kill all the Jews. No, that's not how they started. They had to take over education. They had to eliminate religion. They'd eliminate any opposite.
Be front runners in science.
Everything. They had to control every aspect of that society in order to start the brainwashing effect, and that's really what it is, the mass psychosis, to get them used to being okay with some of the worst atrocities that our planet has ever seen in its history. And it just didn't happen overnight. And unfortunately, and very sad to say, we're seeing very similar things happening right now, where you have over 50% of a certain political party that says that they are totally fine with Americans being put into internment camps right now. That where
I literally had a conversation with a friend in California who said outside of the LA area, like those are like they've seen them being built.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's not that far off.
Oh,
guys.
well, no, like the Army. In fact, I saw the job listings for guards. And, I know Australia.
And it's happening in other countries. I was going to say Australia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like in Melbourne.
It's happening.
Yeah, in Melbourne. I mean, they've been locking up people for 14 to 21 days, people that don't even have COVID. They're putting them in there. And no rights.
Oh, yeah. They're trying to get rid of the Aborigine. Like, they're doing very strategic plays. Remove historical figures. Remove people who know information that shares of truth.
Yeah. And, I know there's going to be many people that are watching this video going, oh, this is just another right-wing conversation. But it's really not. I'm not trying to get political here. I'm just pointing out the facts of what is actually going on and what has actually happened in the past. I mean, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And we are repeating it. And it's scary. But there is hope. I mean, there's always hope. And so, one of the reasons why we created FreeSpace was to give the voice back to the people, to allow people to converse one with another again, because that has been suppressed. And I'm not in the business of suppression. I would love to suppress suppression, if that makes sense. But I think where we as a society are going, I think we're kind of at a pivotal turning point right now, where Americans are starting, and Canadians, Australians, Finnish, Danish, all these people around the world are starting to wake up to the con that was COVID. I mean, yes, people died. Yeah. I lost a family member, a very close family member, to COVID. I almost lost my grandpa to it a couple of weeks ago. So don't get me wrong, COVID is real.
My dad.
Rocky, your dad. I mean, we almost lost that big guy, and that would have been a massive loss to the world. Oh
my gosh,
Rocky's one of my favorite people on the planet. Her dad, but
me too.
So COVID is real. But so is everything behind it, how it was created.
Absolutely.
All that information's coming out right now with the gain of function research that Fauci knew about for years, the Wuhan lab. That's all coming out now. But for me, I think Americans. I think you back when Pearl Harbor was hit by the Japanese, it says now that we've awoken the sleeping giant. Well, I think the sleeping giant's being woken up again. I think we all saw it
absolutely
in our lifetime when 9/11 hit. And I still remember 9/11. I remember every single minute of that morning when the planes hit the World Trade Center. I was getting ready. I had a college course that morning. I had to get ready for class. And I remember watching on TV thinking it was a movie preview. And then I was glued to my TV the whole time, watching it play out in real time. But then I remember the next day or 2 days later, you see every single member of Congress standing in front of the Capitol singing God Bless America. They were united. We as a country were united. I remember seeing a guy standing over the overpass on a freeway just waving the American flag. And I just remember that feeling of pride. But there was also that pissed off resolve, like, you know what? You don't attack us. Pat Tillman, who played for the Arizona Cardinals, he literally walked away from a $6 million contract to go become an Army Ranger, and he was killed. Unfortunately, he was killed by friendly fire, but he literally gave up everything to go fight for this nation. And I think we're almost to that point again where we see an enemy, and unfortunately the enemy is within, and we're just not putting up with it anymore. It'd be very interesting to see where things
are so strong.
What's that?
I said, we the people are really strong, and they know that. That's why there is such an intentional strategic move to silence every voice that is not their narrative. So as soon as we, the people, gather and connect with who we are as a nation, there is way more of us than of what's against us. And so because of that, that is when we will see a stance. That is when we will see the tables turn. And I am confident we will see it in our lifetime. And I'm confident we'll see it soon. And I mean, the Bible's so clear, those who seek truth will find it. And people are hungry for truth. They are dying for truth. They are looking for truth, and truth is out there. And the big tech voices, everybody is doing their best to silence truth, but you can't. It's impossible. It will be found. So I think we're going to see that rise up again. And I mean, that's the thing that is so intimidating to big government narrative, is they know we are so much stronger than we even realize right now. Which is why even this trucking convoy, all of those, that's why it intimidates them. And it's why these things are really important, is because it's really a stance to show people like who you are as an American citizen, who you are as a son and a daughter, and to stand up and to live in that identity and to stand firm on what we know for liberty, justice, truth, and freedom, what true freedom is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kylie, thank you for being here on the show today.
And sweet.
We covered the gambit. We covered a lot of great things today. And
we did.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you share this video. Tell all your friends and families about FreeSpace Now. Download the FreeSpace app, now available in all the app stores. Kylie Jean Tannehill, thank you so much for being here. We'll talk to you soon, everyone. Take care.